Hi, I'm Robert Orm, and I'll be reading you today's edition of the Fall River Herald, dated Monday, April 20th, 2026. City seeks Vatican permission to buy Bishop Connolly, by Emily Sherney. The former Bishop Connolly High School is in process to come under city ownership, but it's unlikely the city will be able to close on the property before January 2027, after the purchase and sales agreement gets a rubber stamp from the Vatican. At a joint meeting of the Fall River Public School Committee and the City Council on April 14th, the school district's Chief Operating Officer, Ken Pacheco, spoke not only of the prospect of a drafted sales agreement, but what buying the property would mean to Fall River's youngest and most vulnerable students in terms of providing programs and classes breathing room. The $29.8 million, 55-acre property with outdoor facilities and 7 buildable acres is just over 600,000 square feet. It houses 18 classrooms and 133 students, both of which are expected to double in number after the purchase is finalized and updates to the building are made. There's a lot more work to do to get there, Pacheco told counselors and members of the school board. This is where we want to go. With the former Catholic high school potentially exiting diocesan control, Bishop Connolly's next purpose could be spelled out in offering its pre-existing amenities with a few timely upgrades: a gymnasium, a theater, food service capabilities, and athletic fields, to a district hurting for space and scrambling between schools to canvass student services that ought to be streamlined. The school could serve as a community space for nonprofit use, Pacheco mused, and it's one valuable piece of a bigger picture citywide capital plan. New windows, roofing, a kitchen, a boiler, classrooms, new AV system technology, and work on the building's exterior to bring everything up to date is expected to take place. The renovations carry projected costs of $400,000 in classroom upgrades and $300,000 worth of new technical and security systems installed, Pacheco said, throwing out numbers correlated to the more prescient work involved with the project. Besides the $30 million price tag for the building, the updates themselves are priced around $20 million. But community partners like the Massachusetts School Building Authority, Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, and National Grid could potentially reimburse the district $16 million, leaving $4 million remaining. Pacheco said 80% of updates are eligible to be returned by the MSBA, and 100% of Mass CEC's upgrades are reimbursable. The old Wiley School on North Main Street and the former Stone School at 1207 Globe Street could be potential funding levers for the Bishop Connolly project if the district were to put both of those properties on the market. Applying for Community Preservation Act funding was suggested, considering the need to preserve 24 acres of wetlands on the property. Pacheco's preview paves the way Connolly's imagined development to take root. With finalization of the P&S agreement on April 15th, alongside the fiscal year 2027 school budget, and the Vatican for a months-long review, which isn't expected to end until September. The district could finalize the sale early next year, Pacheco said. Thrift Shop, a Treasure Trove of Unique Finds, by Ashley Schuler. When it comes to thrifting, there's nothing like the thrill of the hunt. And there's one Fall River destination that's a must-stop on that quest for all things quirky and vintage, offering locals a first-hand look at cool second-hand finds. Whether your collection of retro items is never complete or you're hungry for bargains, Laura's Vintage Attic is the store that is everything. You want thingamabobs? They've got plenty, as well as who's-its and what's-its galore. At 1791 South Main Street, it's a trove of treasures untold run by owner Laura Pacheco and her mother Frances, who decided to turn their hobby into a business with the opening of their own shop in June 2024. "This is something we love to do," said Laura Pacheco, who aside from the shop works full-time as a technical business lead for Siemens Healthcare. "We love the hunt, so we figured we'd try to bring something like that to the area." The mother-daughter duo has been thrifting for the past 11 years. Pacheco said what began as a search for unique timepiece items to fill their 115-year-old house eventually blossomed into an eBay store, and now their first brick-and-mortar storefront. "We want to be able to provide a space that sells unique items that people really love, but that people can also afford," Laura Pacheco said. Initially located at the corner of South Main and King Philip Streets in the city's south end, the Pachecos upgraded to bigger space just across the street last year and kicked their gift for thrift up a notch since. Pacheco's Vintage Attic offers something for everybody, Pacheco said. Their shop is home to unique knickknacks, restored furniture, vintage glassware, plates, pottery, women's accessories such as purses, hats, and brooches, and curated kitchen and home decor. There's also a kids' corner with vintage toys like Fisher-Price Little People. Christmas is also a big season at Laura's Vintage Attic, as the entire store is transformed by holiday items and decor. When outsourcing for the shop, the pair scour estate sales, online auctions, pick through Savers and Goodwill locations, as well as seeking out long-forgotten gems at yard sales. Yard sale season is a big season for us. We try to get a lot of our inventory then because we can get the most for our money, Pacheco said. With an eye for unusual and heirloom, their typical thrifting haul consists of anything unique. Anything farm-core, cottage-core, grandma-core is very big right now, so we're always on the lookout for that, she said. Little trinkets are very popular, as well as antique and artisanal glassware such as milk glass, Fenton glass, and Murano glass. Have an interesting piece lying around the house? They'll purchase it outright if it fits the shop. Most items range in price from $1 to $20. As for the most unique piece they've brought in so far, Pacheco said on display in their shop is a 1950s-era donkey-shaped men's bureau caddy, with compartments on its head and body to put trinkets, and a cheeky spot to keep your brush. In addition to eBay, Pacheco recently introduced another mechanism for selling beyond the physical shop, hosting their first show recently on Whatnot, a live online auction website. It's become the trend for those with brick-and-mortar thrift shops and vendor booths, Pacheco said, as it's very fast-paced and enables them to reach a broader audience. That's been a whole other learning experience, Pacheco said. My mom and I have been having a really great time with the store, and now with Whatnot, it's another layer of something fun and exciting. The Pachecos recently held a vintage linen sale on Whatnot, and were able to sell 90% of their linen, cross-stitch, and crochet pieces that hadn't moved in store and had long gotten tucked away in a drawer. It's nice because I was able to move that inventory a lot quicker than I had been, which is going to be good for the shop, Pacheco said. Interested in getting in on their next Whatnot show? Check the shop's Instagram and Facebook pages for upcoming dates. All shows are also streamed live on their Facebook page as bidding gets underway. Laura's Vintage Attic is open Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. For updates on what they have in store and on upcoming live auctions, visit the shop on Facebook or Instagram. You can also shop items from Laura's Vintage Attic via their eBay store or whatnot. While you're there, scope out the little free art library, courtesy of local resident Mia Aguirre, set up in front of the store, which is located a stone's throw from Christopher's Cafe and Ray's Florist. It's a nice little community neighborhood, Pacheco said. Take part in a live ghost investigation at Borden House by Beth McDermott. Dalen Spratt, star of the TV series Ghost Brothers, is set to visit the Lizzie Borden House in Fall River June 5th for live ghost investigations. The event will run from 7:30 to 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. to 1 a.m. at the historic home at 230 2nd Street, according to a community announcement. Spratt, known for leading investigations into haunted locations, will host 2 live ghost investigations inside the home where the 1892 Borden murders took place. Guests will have the opportunity to investigate alongside Spratt using paranormal equipment and techniques featured on television, according to the announcement. Tickets are available online and are expected to sell out quickly. The event is recommended for mature audiences, and guests must follow all house guidelines and staff instructions. Paranormal activity is not guaranteed. Tickets can be purchased at live-a-ghost-at-Lizzie-Borden-house. Women in Congress Work to Fight Abuse by Zachary Shermilly. When 2 of their colleagues faced mounting accusations of sexual assault and misconduct earlier in April, the 2 most powerful leaders in the House of Representatives, both men, refused to demand their resignations. Women in Congress weren't having it. In a matter of days, rank-and-file female lawmakers banded together across party lines to oust Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez. Rather than face being removed from office after embarrassing votes of their peers, the California Democrat and Texas Republican resigned within an hour of each other. It was a striking demonstration of bipartisan resolve on Capitol Hill, and on the heels of the overwhelming approval of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, it was just the latest example of women legislators teaming up, at odds with the men in charge of Congress, to force accountability for prominent figures accused of hurting women. As the Swalwell allegations reached a fever pitch, 2 congresswomen in particular, Anna Paulina Luna, a Florida Republican, and Teresa Ledger Fernandez, a New Mexico Democrat, worked in close collaboration on resolutions to expel him and Gonzalez. Both women told USA Today their efforts to expose abuse by powerful men are just getting started. This should have happened a while ago, Luna said. Swalwell had a notable and, until recently, relatively successful career in Congress. After serving as a city council member, he represented California's 15th congressional district, which included the southwest side of San Francisco from 2013 to 2023. He represented the 14th District, including Alameda County, from 2023 to 2026. A longtime ally of former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, he was one of the key players during President Donald Trump's second impeachment trial over the January 6, 2021 insurrection. He built up enough political clout over the years to run for governor of California, and with his viral moments and social media savvy, had become a front runner in the primary. All that professional progress seemingly exploded on a recent Friday afternoon when multiple women accused him of sexual assault and misconduct in reports in the San Francisco Chronicle and CNN. He has denied those allegations, calling them absolutely false. It didn't take long for Luna to decide enough was enough. The next day, she vowed to introduce a resolution to expel Swalwell. Expelling a member of Congress is exceedingly rare. The last lawmaker in the House of Representatives to be successfully expelled was George Santos, who fabricated much of his resume. Initially, Luna wanted to combine her Swalwell measure with another one to force out Gonzalez. The other congressman, a Republican who represented parts of San Antonio and El Paso, recently admitted to having an extramarital affair with a staffer who died by self-immolation in September 2025 after her husband said the interlude broke up their marriage. Gonzalez later said on a podcast that he'd made a mistake and had a lapse in judgment. After Luna learned procedural rules would prevent her from pairing the two resolutions, a Democrat offered to help. Leger Fernandez, who is the chair of the House Democratic Women's Caucus, said she was drawing up her own bill to oust Gonzalez. They agreed to support one another. She was one of the few stepping up to the plate, Luna said. Meanwhile, the two men in charge of leading the chamber were notably muted. With a mere 2-vote margin in the House of Representatives, neither Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson of Louisiana nor Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York seemed eager to give up a vote. Johnson had already urged Gonzalez not to seek re-election, but didn't call for his expulsion. Jeffries didn't publicly tell Swalwell to step down either. He did, however, say the allegations were disturbing and encouraged the Californian to end his gubernatorial campaign. It wasn't the first time in the 119th Congress that female legislators forced a tectonic political shift. Late in 2025, they also paved the way for passing the bipartisan law to compel the release of Justice Department documents about Jeffrey Epstein, who died in custody while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. After Johnson declined to bring the legislation to the floor, Republican Representatives Nancy Mace of South Carolina and Lauren Boebert of Colorado provided crucial signatures on a petition to force a vote on the bill. Former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Georgia Republican, also played a key role. That decision became an element of a rift that developed between her and Trump before she resigned from Congress. A newly sworn-in congressman, Democrat Adelita Grijalva of Arizona, became the last supporter needed to bring up the Epstein Files Transparency Act for debate. "Justice cannot wait another day," she said from the House floor as she single-handedly triggered the vote. Luna said she's pushing the Senate's ethics panel to investigate other lawmakers who may have been aware of Swalwell's inappropriate behavior. Most of the political views held by Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, New York, and Mace couldn't be more divergent. but they agreed about trying to oust Representative Corey Mills, a Florida Republican under an ethics investigation related to allegations of assault and financial impropriety. Mills told News Nation that considering the accusations he's facing in the same light as those against Swalwell and Gonzalez would not be a fair comparison. In addition, Boebert said she's exploring legislation to keep Swalwell from receiving his pension. Starting in 2042, he'll be eligible for nearly $22,000 annually, according to an analysis shared with USA Today by the independent National Taxpayers Union Foundation. In the same year, Gonzalez would also begin receiving $8,700 per year. The stakes of all those efforts will be heightened during the approaching midterm elections. The November contests could return control of the House to Democrats, and if that happens, the pressure to hold men in Congress accountable won't stop, Leger Fernandez said. Woman wins $300,000 after being overserved alcohol. By Melina Khan. A Carnival cruise passenger who alleged the ship's staff served her 14 tequila shots in the span of 8 hours has won $300,000 in damages. Deanna Sanders sued Carnival Corporation for damages in a Florida federal court after she said she was overserved alcohol despite being visibly intoxicated while on board the Carnival Radiance in January 2024. Sanders said she fell down a flight of stairs and suffered severe injuries as a result of the incident, according to court filings. After a week-long trial, a federal jury in Miami returned the verdict on April 13th. While jurors found both Carnival and Sanders negligent for the incident, they determined the cruise line was 60% responsible for her injuries. In a statement, Carnival said it respectfully disagrees with the verdict and plans to appeal the decision. According to the complaint, the ship's staff served Sanders 14 drinks over 8.5 hours. In a TikTok video, Sanders' attorney, Spencer Ehrenfield, said the drinks were shots of tequila. Sanders, a California resident, was swaying, stammering, slurring her speech, had alcohol on her breath, and was acting belligerent while in front of the crew, the complaint said. Each of Carnival's crew members should not have continued to serve alcohol to her while she was exhibiting these visible signs of intoxication, the complaint said. Afterward, while still intoxicated, Sanders stumbled down a set of stairs and sustained injuries, including a concussion, back injuries, and extreme mental anguish, according to the suit. Carnival argued in court filings that Sanders was negligent for her injuries and failed to recognize the risk of consuming the alcohol. In the TikTok video, Ehrenfield said Sanders lost consciousness during the incident and woke up at the bottom of a staircase, not knowing exactly how she got there. Sanders alleged that after waking up, she tried asking the crew for help. I was very concerned that they wouldn't tell me exactly what happened to me, and so I went to get a lawyer so I could get those tapes and find out what happened, she said. She said it felt amazing to receive the verdict in her favor. Ehrenfield, who said he specializes in suing cruise lines, added that overservice of alcohol cases are extremely difficult. Passengers have a responsibility to drink responsibly, but cruise lines also have a responsibility to serve responsibly, he said. Trump signs order on psychedelic drug research. By Sybil Mays Osterman. President Donald Trump signed an executive order aimed at speeding up research into psychedelic drugs to treat veterans after getting a call from podcast host Joe Rogan. Trump said Rogan pushed him to look into how the drugs could help veterans grappling with suicide and depression. I'm pleased to announce historic reforms to dramatically accelerate access to new medical research and treatments based on psychedelic drugs, Trump told reporters as he signed the order on April 18th. These experimental drugs have shown life-changing potential for those suffering from severe mental illness and depression, including veterans. I got a call from a number of people, including the great Joe Rogan, and he said we have to do something about this. And I looked into it, Trump said, flanked in the Oval Office by Rogan and other proponents of using the drugs for veterans, including Robert O'Neill, a former Navy SEAL who claimed to have killed Osama bin Laden. The order Trump signed directs the Food and Drug Administration to fast-track research into the drugs, including ibogaine, a plant-based hallucinogen. It also dedicates $50 million for states to research the drugs. Rogan said former Texas Governor Rick Perry and Brian Hubbard, who leads an organization called Americans for Ibogaine, convinced him of the usefulness of psychedelics when he interviewed them on his podcast. They told me how impactful this medicine is, he said. In the podcast interview, millions of people got a chance to hear their story, hear the stories of all the different people that have had life-changing experiences from it. There is growing scientific evidence that psychedelics have a positive impact on the psychological conditions of veterans, who face a much higher suicide rate than the general population. Trump referenced a 2024 study from Stanford University that found veterans with traumatic brain injuries who were given ibogaine saw improvements in depression and anxiety. In addition to lending their voices to support research to help veterans, both Rogan and O'Neill have been among the podcast personalities who have expressed criticism for Trump's war against Iran. After signing the order, Trump said there were very good conversations going on with Iran, even though Iran had hours earlier said it would not open the Strait of Hormuz and has not publicly agreed to return to talks with the Trump administration. Days before the appearance with Trump, Rogan said on his podcast the war is terrifying, using an expletive. How is this still going on? He said. O'Neill has also criticized the Iran war. After Trump threatened to destroy a whole civilization if Iran did not open the Strait of Hormuz, O'Neill said he didn't think it was presidential. I know that it's very difficult to be around President Trump and tell him something you disagree with, O'Neill said during an April 7th Piers Morgan Uncensored appearance. I know the man. I've had dinner at the White House with him. But someone should step up on something like this. You really can't say you're going to wipe out an entire civilization. Experts. Rotavirus cases surge in U.S. By Mary Walrath Holdridge. A highly contagious illness that can cause severe and even deadly vomiting and diarrhea is spreading at an alarmingly high rate across the United States, health experts warned. Cases of rotavirus usually increase during the typical cold and flu season. The recent surge, which is continuing, has been significant enough to grab the attention of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The increase in rotavirus infections that we have seen over the past 4 to 6 months is unusual compared to previous seasons over the past 2 decades when rotavirus vaccines have been available, said Dr. Andy L. Shane, chief of the Division of Pediatric Infectious Disease at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta and professor of pediatrics at Emory University. The trend in the increasing rates of rotavirus infections is concerning, as well as the corresponding decrease in rotavirus immunization rates. Data from the CDC's National Respiratory and Enteric Virus Surveillance System shows a steep increase in rotavirus cases beginning in January, with the latest data from April 4th representing the highest rate of infection since August 2025. Of 2,329 tests administered the week ending April 4th, 7.3% were positive. At a low point in January, only 1.66% of 2,950 cases returned positive. Wastewater Scan, a Stanford University tool for tracking the spread of disease by testing wastewater samples, categorized rotavirus activity as high as of April 12th, noting a 40% increase in concentrations since February. There has been a nationwide observation and discussion regarding increases in the number of children with rotavirus infections seeking medical attention for vomiting, diarrhea, and dehydration, said Shane. Families have been asking questions about which vaccines are needed, and because rotavirus immunization has been so successful over the past 2 decades in reducing rotavirus disease, many parents are not aware of rotavirus and the dehydration that it can cause. People infected with rotavirus pass the virus in their stool. It is spread when virus particles enter the mouth. Usually this means touching a contaminated surface or stool directly and putting unwashed hands into or near the mouth or eating contaminated food. The disease can become serious for some people, resulting in severe dehydration, hospitalization, and sometimes death, Dr. Rochelle Walensky, advisor for medical affairs at the Vaccine Integrity Project and former director of the CDC, told USA Today. Anyone can get rotavirus, but infections are more common and more likely to become serious in infants and young children, older adults, and people with weakened immune systems. Because of its fecal-oral transmission, rotavirus commonly spreads among families and in hospitals and child care centers, according to the CDC. Children are most likely to get rotavirus from January through June. Children are also more likely to experience dehydration, as they have higher fluid needs relative to their body weight, limited fluid reserves, and are unable to tolerate rapid fluid losses from the vomiting and diarrhea that result from rotavirus infection, Shane said. People infected by rotavirus typically start showing symptoms 2 days after exposure, according to the CDC. The most common symptoms are severe watery diarrhea and vomiting that can last 3 to 8 days, fever, and stomach pain. Dehydration symptoms to look out for include decreased urination, dry mouth and throat, feeling dizzy while and standing up, crying with few or no tears, and unusual sleepiness or fussiness. Besides immunization, the best ways to prevent the spread include hand washing, good hygiene, and isolating sick people. It's important to remember that alcohol-based hand hygiene, such as hand sanitizer, is not good at preventing rotavirus disease, said Walensky, and that washing with soap is necessary. There is no treatment for rotavirus beyond supportive care, which includes staying hydrated. Vaccination is the most effective form of protection against rotavirus, according to Shane Walensky and the CDC. The vaccine is given by mouth as liquid drops to infants in either a 2 or 3 dose series between 2 to 6 months of age, said Shane. It is highly effective, preventing severe rotavirus infections in 9 of 10 immunizations, and preventing any infection at all in 7 of 10. Before the vaccine, rotavirus annually sent more than 400,000 children to doctors' offices and 200,000 to emergency rooms. About 70,000 children were hospitalized, and 20 to 60 deaths occurred each year, according to the National Foundation of Infectious Diseases. Widespread vaccination has prevented about 60,000 hospitalizations from rotavirus each year, said Walensky. It's important to remember that our baseline expectation for the number of cases has decreased significantly since the introduction of the rotavirus vaccine, she said. So even high activity now in terms of duration and magnitude is less than we used to see. Shane said she has seen more cases than usual. While there is likely not a single contributing factor, decreasing uptake of rotavirus immunization is likely one contributing factor, said Shane. Walensky, on the other hand, noted that the current rate of infection isn't entirely unusual for a seasonal surge, and she said we don't currently have evidence to link the spike directly to decreased vaccine uptake. We've reached the halfway point of our program, and regular listeners are aware that at this stage of our broadcast we move to the obituaries. However, there are no obituaries in today's edition. Hesketh faces articles of impeachment by Diana Leyva. Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives have introduced articles of impeachment against Secretary of War Pete Hesketh. On April 15th, Representative Yasemin Ansari, Arizona, introduced the 7-page impeachment resolution, a copy of which was first obtained by Axios. The resolution centers on U.S. operations in Iran, the Signalgate controversy, and Hesketh's alleged personal misconduct. Ansari, the president of House Democrats' freshman class and a daughter of Iranian immigrants, alleged earlier in April that Hesketh is complicit in what she described as a devastating illegal war. She further accused the Trump administration of escalating actions that she says threaten civilian infrastructure and could amount to war crimes. Hesketh's reckless endangerment of U.S. service members and repeated war crimes, including bombing a girls' school in Minab, Iran, and willfully targeting civilian infrastructure, are grounds for impeachment and removal from office, Ansari said in a statement. 5 articles of impeachment are being brought against Hesketh. Article 1 accuses Hesketh of helping initiate and expand U.S. military operations against Iran without approval from Congress, which the Constitution requires before entering a war. Lawmakers argue he failed to properly consult Congress and supported military actions without clear goals or legal authorization. They say his actions exposed U.S. service members to unnecessary danger, including potentially risky operations inside Iran, and show disregard for constitutional limits on his authority. Article 2 alleges that Hesketh approved or failed to stop military actions that harmed civilians and damaged civilian infrastructure, violating international rules governing warfare. The article claims U.S. operations under his leadership resulted in significant civilian casualties and included strikes on a non-military site, citing the U.S. bombing of a girls' school in Minab, Iran. Article 3 focuses on what lawmakers describe as reckless handling of sensitive military information. The resolution accuses Hesketh of discussing operational details using unsecured communication platforms, including the Signal app. According to the article, this careless and improper behavior compromised operational security and potentially put U.S. troops at risk. Article 4 claims Hesketh obstructed Congress's ability to oversee the military by withholding information and failing to cooperate with oversight requests. Lawmakers say he did not fully or promptly disclose details about military operations or civilian casualties in Iran, Venezuela, and other regions. The article argues that this behavior interfered with Congress's constitutional duty to monitor and check executive branch actions. Article 5 accuses Hesketh of abusing his power by politicizing the military. The resolution alleges he used his position to influence military decisions for political purposes, including interfering in personnel or disciplinary matters. Lawmakers claim he targeted elected officials or ordered investigations as political retaliation, undermining the long-standing principle that the armed forces should remain nonpartisan. The resolution concludes by claiming that through the aforementioned behavior, Hesketh damaged the reputation and effectiveness of the U.S. military. Lawmakers argue his actions undermined public trust in the Pentagon, weakened alliances such as NATO, and harmed U.S. credibility abroad. The resolution also alleges he promoted policies and behavior that discriminated against women, LGBTQ+ service members, and people of color, which they say hurt morale, cohesion, and readiness across the armed forces. According to Axios, the resolution has 8 Democratic co-sponsors: Representatives Jasmine Crockett, Texas; Nikema Williams, Georgia; Dinah Titus, Nevada; David Min, California; Sri Thanadar, Michigan; Brittany Peterson, Colorado; Sarah McBride, Delaware; and Steve Cohen, Tennessee. On April 6th, Ansari claimed Hesketh has enabled and directed what she calls an illegal war in Iran that targets civilians and violates the Constitution. In a video posted to social media, Ansari said the Trump administration's actions were absolutely horrifying and gut-wrenching, pointing to threats against Iranian civilian infrastructure and Trump's warning that the country could be taken out in one night. She accused Hesketh, whom she described as a chief enabler of this illegal war, of overseeing military actions that have killed thousands of civilians and displaced more than 1 million people in the region. The U.S. Constitution states that the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. While neither the Constitution nor early historical sources clearly define who qualifies as a civil officer, the Federalist Papers emphasize impeachment as a constitutional check on the executive and judicial branches. The Department of Defense, which Trump renamed the Department of War, falls within the executive branch and is led by the Secretary of Defense, also renamed Secretary of War, making the position subject to congressional oversight. The impeachment process begins in the House, which drafts and votes on articles of impeachment against an official. If a simple majority of House members approves the articles, the official is impeached. The Senate then conducts an impeachment trial, and if the official is convicted, they are removed from office and may be barred from holding future federal office. If acquitted, the official remains in their position. Republicans currently control both chambers of Congress, making Ansari's impeachment push highly unlikely. Ohio student charged with making AI nudes of peers. By David Ferrara, Grace Tucker, and Matthew Kupele. A second Cincinnati area high school student has been arrested for using artificial intelligence with underage classmates' social media photos to create fake nude images. The 16-year-old student at Mason High School in Mason, Ohio, is the second in recent weeks to be charged with creating AI deepfakes. Fake photos and videos of people that appear to be real, generally in sexually explicit situations. Mason Police Detective Andrew Herlinger said the student used photos from at least 7 underage peers' social media accounts to create 43 sexually explicit photos and videos of them with AI. The student then shared those photos to his public Discord account last fall, according to Warren County Juvenile Court records. The Cincinnati Enquirer, part of the USA Today network, generally does not name juveniles charged with a crime. Discord, a group messaging app popular with teenagers, has been in the hot seat in recent years for enabling predators to converse with underage children, as well as for facilitating the sharing of child sexual abuse material. Herlinger said police received a cyber tip that originated from Discord about the content. It is unclear how many other people were able to access the photos that the student is accused of sharing and if those people are also facing criminal charges. Herlinger said there were other minors in the Discord group from outside the state who are being investigated by their local law enforcement. A Mason City school spokeswoman said the district cannot comment on the status of any individual student. In situations like this, when serious concerns involving law enforcement arise, families and school officials often work together to identify solutions that support a safe and stable learning environment for all students while those processes are ongoing, the spokeswoman said in a statement. She added the district's response has included connecting students with school counselors and other members of its prevention and wellness team, as well as other ongoing support as needed. Additionally, the spokeswoman said the district has actively informed families about the incident, including through an April 10th statement, a principal newsletter, and in a message from Superintendent Jonathan Cooper. Earlier in April, Mason police charged a 17-year-old student from the high school with having dozens of sexually explicit images of minors. Herlinger said the student separately used AI with Mason classmates' social media pictures, but did not share them with others. "We're seeing a spike in this activity," Herlinger said. "This won't be the last time for sure." The 16-year-old student appeared in court April 15th, where he was released to his parents under electronically monitored house arrest. He faces 9 felony charges, 8 counts of dissemination of an image of another person, and 1 count of pandering obscenity involving a minor. Several messages found on the boy's phone detailed violent sexual fantasies involving girls, Warren County Prosecutor John Rye said. Warren County Juvenile Court Judge Joseph Kirby ruled against detaining the teen, instead placing him on house arrest, where he will continue virtual classwork. He will not be returning to the school this year, his mother said at the hearing. In tough times, Russians are turning to witchcraft. Self-described witch Natalia Milanovaskaya has a new client base. Men fighting in eastern Ukraine who, like a growing number of Russians, are drawn to the supernatural against a backdrop of conflict and economic uncertainty. In her darkened apartment in Moscow, Milanovaskaya, who says she inherited her powers from her grandmother, offers services from love spells to protection from evil. She has also made frequent appearances on Russian television. Demonstrating how she detects a bad vibe over someone's health by wafting a lit match over a glass, she said most people seek help for love problems, including soldiers worried about their partners staying faithful. They contact me, and there are many of them, said Malinovaskaya, cautioning that she can only cast spells in person when soldiers are on leave. It's impossible to carry out a ritual at the front. Where would someone burn candles, and how would I even send them there? Orthodox Christianity, mysticism, and folk superstitions have coexisted in Russia through centuries of Tsarist rule and the religious repression of the Soviet era. Interest surged in the final years of the Russian Empire, when faith healer Rasputin's influence over the Tsar's family caused public outrage, and again during the chaotic years after the Soviet Union's collapse. After a period of decline, it is on the rise again. Today's geopolitical and economic challenges in Russia and worldwide heighten anxiety, triggering a surge in mysticism, state pollster VTSIOM said in March, as it published a poll showing that 85% of Russians had dabbled in magical practices. In such conditions, especially against the backdrop of military threats, belief, regardless of which gods are involved, turns into a tool of psychological defense, it said. Russian forces have been on the offensive in Ukraine for over 4 years, fueling a deadly crisis that has damaged Russia's international standing, slowed the economy, and driven up the cost of living. Nearly half of Russians believe that some people may be able to predict the future or have magical powers, the survey showed, up from less than a third in 2019. At Witch Store in Moscow, which sells crystals, tarot guides, and other magical paraphernalia, a couple of customers browsed the shelves looking for incense to cleanse the air or bring good luck. Black obsidian spheres are very popular and in high demand. Obsidian is considered a stone of safety, said the shop's co-owner, Yulia Gusanova, referring to volcanic glass. Voodoo-themed bar Marie Laveau, which offers tarot readings, has benefited from the Zeitgeist, said owner Evgenia Chazanginard. It turned out that we matched perfectly with the moment, she said. The revival has its opponents. In 2025, a group of lawmakers submitted a bill to ban ads for services such as astrology and energy healing, warning that they can lead to financial exploitation of vulnerable people. Patriarch Kirill, the head of Russia's Orthodox Church, backed the idea of a ban and in January decried the mass manipulative influence of fortune tellers and psychics. Report: Woods is responding well to treatment. Tiger Woods is making progress as he follows an intensive rehab program after his arrest on a driving under the influence charge, the Daily Mail reported. He's got a pain management doctor who is helping him deal with his body pain without addictive opioids, a source told the British publication. He calls on Zooms a small number of people. Those people reportedly include girlfriend Vanessa Trump, daughter Sam, and son Charlie, and Mark Steinberg, his agent since 1998. Per the Daily Mail, Woods, 50, is believed to be in Switzerland in an inpatient residential treatment program that is scheduled to run for 90 days. Woods entered rehab following a car crash on March 27th near his home at Jupiter Island, Florida. He was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence and refusing to take a urine test near his home in Florida after his Land Rover clipped the back of a truck and rolled over onto its side. He was not injured and has pleaded not guilty to the charges. Authorities have said he was impaired by medication and not alcohol. At the time of his arrest, he had 2 hydrocodone pills in his pocket, authorities confirmed. He's responding well to treatment, and Vanessa is very happy with what she's hearing, a friend of Trump told the outlet. On the morning of the day of the crash, speculation was rampant if Woods would play at the Masters tournament. He hasn't played on the PGA Tour since the Open Championship in 2024, where he missed the cut because of injury. He ruptured his left Achilles tendon in the spring of 2025 and underwent lumbar disc replacement surgery in October. This was not his first accident. On February 23, 2021, authorities said Woods was traveling at a high rate of speed when he crashed near Los Angeles. He suffered significant injuries to his right leg and ankle that required multiple surgeries. In a statement issued March 31st, Woods said he was prioritizing his health over golf. I know and understand the seriousness of the situation I find myself in today, Wood's statement read. I am stepping away for a period of time to seek treatment and focus on my health. This is necessary in order for me to prioritize my well-being and work toward lasting recovery. I'm committed to taking the time needed to return in a healthier, stronger, and more focused place, both personally and professionally. Boston Fever agreed to richest deal in WNBA history. Aaliyah Boston and the Indiana Fever agreed to a 4-year, $6.3 million extension, according to ESPN, which is the richest contract in the league's history. I'm super blessed and grateful for this opportunity and to continue my journey here with the Fever. God is good, Boston said. I'm excited for the future ahead for both myself and for our team, and I can't wait to keep building upon everything we have accomplished so far. Go Fever! To help the Fever pay other players in the roster, Boston, a 6'5" forward, agreed to earn $1 million in 2026, less than the $1.19 million she was eligible for. Boston is set to earn 20% of the Fever's cap each year through 2029. A 3-time All-Star, Boston has averaged 14.5 points, 8.5 rebounds, and 3.0 assists while shooting 54.7% for the Fever, who chose Boston with first overall pick in 2023. Boston averaged 15.0 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 3.7 assists in 2025. And that's all I have time for. This is your reader, Robert Worm, saying thanks for listening.